The corridors were chaos. Alarms blared from every wall and red lights flashed in patterns that made Minji's head hurt. Cadets ran in different directions, some toward their quarters, others toward emergency stations. Instructors shouted orders that were lost in the noise. Minji followed Vorath through the maze of hallways. The massive reptilian moved fast despite his size, and she had to run to keep up. Behind her, she could hear Kellis's rapid footsteps, the clicking of the insect's legs on the metal floor. "What got loose?" Minji called out. Vorath didn't slow down. "Voidstalker. Apex predator from Quarantine World 7. It should not be anywhere near the cadet wings." They reached Training Room 9 and found Kellis and Thum already inside. The room was large, filled with equipment for combat practice. Weights, weapons, target drones all scattered around. The door slid shut behind them with a heavy thud. "We're supposed to stay here?" Minji asked. "This room has reinforced walls," Vorath said. "It's one of the designated safe zones during emergencies." Kellis paced back and forth, her limbs moving in agitation. "How long until security handles it?" "Void stalkers are difficult to contain," Thum said, his words vibrating through the floor. "They can sense electromagnetic fields. They adapt their camouflage to any environment. On their home world, they are the top predator." Minji moved to one of the walls and pressed her hand against it. It was cold and smooth, made of some material she didn't recognize. Through the door, she could hear more alarms, more shouting, and then something else, a scratching sound. Vorath heard it too. His whole body went rigid, his scales seeming to darken. "It's close. How close?" Kellis asked, but her voice had changed. The aggressive confidence from earlier was gone. The scratching grew louder. It was coming from the ventilation shaft near the ceiling. Minji looked up and saw the grate moving. Something was pushing it from the other side. "The ventilation system," Thum said slowly. "It connects to all rooms." The grate fell to the floor with a clang. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was silent except for the distant alarms. Then something dropped from the opening. The Voidstalker was like nothing Minji had ever seen. It had 6 legs, each ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Its body was sleek and muscular, covered in plates that shifted colors matching the walls, the floor, the equipment around it. Its head was narrow with sensory organs that twitched and rotated, scanning the room. And it was big, easily the size of an earth lion, maybe larger. Vorath made a sound deep in his throat, something between a growl and a whimper. The massive warrior who had seemed so confident hours ago now stood frozen, his body trembling. Minji understood. This was instinct. Vorath's species had evolved on a world with predators like this. His ancestors had been prey. Every cell in his body was screaming at him to run, to hide, to do anything but face this creature. Kellis was already moving, but not toward the Voidstalker. She was backing away, her aggressive nature warring with her survival instincts. Her limbs scraped against the floor, the sound high-pitched and desperate. Thum was trying to shift toward the door, but his slow silicon body couldn't move fast enough. The Voidstalker's sensory organs locked onto Vorath. The creature moved forward, low to the ground, stalking. It knew what prey looked like. It knew when something was helpless. Minji's heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. She could feel the adrenaline flooding her system. The same feeling she got back on Earth when she had encountered a bear during survival training. Fear. Pure and simple. But something else too. Her instructors on Earth had taught her about predators. They had taught her that running sometimes made you prey, that showing fear made you a target. The Voidstalker was 3 meters from Vorath now, its muscles tensed, preparing to pounce. Minji didn't think. She moved. There was a broken piece of equipment near her feet, part of a training weight that had snapped during someone's exercise. Metal about 1/2 meter long with a jagged end. She grabbed it and ran toward the Voidstalker. "Hey!" she shouted. The creature's head snapped toward her, its sensory organs focused on this new target, this small creature that was moving toward it instead of away. Minji saw the moment of confusion in the creature's body language. Its stance shifted slightly, no longer in pure attack mode. She didn't slow down. Every instinct from Earth told her that hesitation meant death. If you were going to fight, you committed completely. The Voidstalker lunged at her. Fast as lightning, Minji dropped and rolled, feeling the air move above her as claws passed through the space where her head had been. She came up on one knee and thrust the metal bar upward. She got lucky. The jagged end caught one of the creature's sensory organs. the one that looked like a cluster of stalks near its head. The organ burst, spraying fluid. The Void Stalker screamed. The sound was high and piercing, making everyone in the room cover their ears, but it didn't attack again. Instead, it backed away. Minji stood up slowly, keeping the metal bar raised. Her hands were still shaking, but she kept her eyes locked on the creature. The Void Stalker circled, its remaining sensory organs focused entirely on her. It was reassessing. She could see it in the way it moved, in the way it kept its distance. This prey had fought back. This prey had hurt it. Prey wasn't supposed to do that. The creature's plates shifted colors rapidly, a sign of agitation. It took another step back, then another. Behind Minji, the door exploded inward. Security personnel rushed in, armed with weapons that crackled with energy. They formed a line between the cadets and the Void Stalker. "Stay back." One of them shouted. They fired. The energy bolts hit the creature and it convulsed, its body going rigid. After a few seconds, it collapsed to the floor unconscious. Commander Drawl entered the room, her forearms moving in agitation. Her multiple eyes scanned the damage, the injured cadets, and finally settled on Minji, who still held the bloody metal bar. "What happened here?" Commander Drawl demanded. Vorath found his voice first. "The human saved us. The stalker was going to attack, and she attacked it first." Commander Drawl looked at Minji for a long moment. "You charged an apex predator. With no training, no proper weapon. Do you understand how reckless that was?" Minji lowered the bar. "It was going to kill Vorath, and instead it could have killed you." "But it didn't," Kelly said, her voice quiet. "It backed away. I've never seen a Void Stalker retreat from anything." The security team was securing the unconscious creature, wrapping it in some kind of energy field. One of them approached Commander Drawl. "Sir, we've contained it. Medical is on the way for the injured cadets." "How did it get into the cadet wing?" "Training exercise malfunction. Someone routed it to the wrong section. We're investigating." Commander Drawl nodded, then turned back to the squad. "All of you, Medical Bay. Now, I want you checked for injuries." As they filed out of the room, Vorath walked beside Minji. The massive warrior looked down at her with something new in his golden eyes. "Respect, maybe. Or fear. Thank you," he said quietly. "My people, we do not do well with ambush predators. Our instincts fail us." "It's okay," Minji said. "We all have things we're afraid of." "But you were not afraid." Minji almost laughed. "I was terrified. Then why did you attack?" She thought about it. "Because on Earth, if you show fear, you die. The predators there, they can sense it. Sometimes the only way to survive is to make them think you're more dangerous than they are." In the medical bay, doctors that looked nothing like human doctors examined them. Minji had a few bruises and a cut on her arm from where she had rolled on the floor, but nothing serious. The other human cadets found her there. Jinho, Sora, and the others. Word had spread quickly about what happened. "Is it true?" Sora asked. "You really fought a Void Stalker?" "I wouldn't call it a fight," Minji said. "I just reacted." "They're saying it backed away from you," Jinho said. "That's not normal." Minji shrugged. "I got lucky." But later, when she was alone in her quarters, she thought about that moment. The way the Void Stalker had looked at her after she attacked. The way it had retreated. It had been afraid, not of her size or her strength. She had neither. But it had been afraid of something. She just didn't know what yet. 3 weeks passed, and life at the academy settled into a routine. Morning exercises, tactical classes, weapons training, survival scenarios. Minji and the other humans worked hard, trying to prove they belonged. But something had changed after the Void Stalker incident. The other cadets looked at the humans differently now. Not with pity or contempt, but with curiosity, and sometimes something that looked like caution. Minji noticed it during combat drills. When she sparred with alien cadets, they were more careful than they were with each other. They kept their distance. They watched her movements closely, as if expecting something unexpected. It made her uncomfortable. The real strangeness began during a training exercise in week 4. Commander Drawl had set up a scenario in one of the simulation rooms. Squad 17 was tasked with retrieving a package from a hostile environment. The simulation used real creatures, not holograms, to make it as realistic as possible. The creature for this exercise was called a razor mantis. It came from a world where evolution had created the perfect ambush hunter, fast, deadly, with blades on its forelimbs that could cut through most materials. The briefing room showed footage of the Razor Mantis in action. It was terrifying. 2 meters tall, with a body that looked like living knives. In 20 years of use at the Academy, it had never failed to challenge cadets. Many had been injured by it, even in controlled conditions. "Your squad will enter the simulation room," Commander Drawl explained. "The Razor Mantis will be hunting you. Your goal is to reach the package and extract without serious injury. If anyone is tagged by the creature's blades, you fail." Vorath shifted nervously. "This creature is known on many worlds. It does not hesitate. It does not retreat." "Correct," Commander Drawl said. "That is what makes it an excellent training tool." The simulation room was designed to look like an alien forest. Strange trees with blue leaves grew from the floor, and the lighting was dim, creating shadows everywhere. The package was visible in the distance, sitting on a pedestal. "Begin," Commander Drawl's voice said through the speakers. Squad 17 moved forward carefully. Vorath took point, using his size to push through the vegetation. Kelly scouted ahead, her speed and agility perfect for navigating the terrain. Thum moved slowly at the rear, his crystalline body nearly indestructible if they were attacked from behind. Minji stayed in the middle, her eyes scanning the shadows. She saw movement to the left. "Just a flash of something sharp." "Contact left," she called out. The Razor Mantis stepped out from behind a tree. It was even more frightening in person than in the footage. Its bladed forelimbs caught the light, gleaming. Its head swiveled, taking in all 4 members of the squad. According to the briefing, this was when it should attack. Razor Mantises were aggressive. They struck fast and without warning, but this one didn't move. It stood there, its head tilted slightly, focused on the squad. Specifically focused on Minji. "Why isn't it attacking?" Kellis whispered. "I don't know," Vorath said. "This is not normal behavior." Minji took a step forward. The Razor Mantis shifted its stance, lowering its body slightly. It was defensive posture. She had seen similar positions in Earth predators when they were uncertain. She took another step. The Razor Mantis backed away. "By the ancestors," Vorath breathed. "It's retreating," Commander Drawl's voice came through the speakers. "Hold position. Do not advance further." The simulation ended abruptly. The lights came up fully, and the Razor Mantis was quickly ushered out of the room by handlers. Squad 17 stood in confusion. Commander Drawl entered the room, her forearms crossed. Her expression was difficult to read, but Minji thought she looked troubled. "In 20 years, Commander Drawl said slowly, that creature has never once shown avoidance behavior. Never. It is bred for aggression. It knows no fear." She looked directly at Minji. "Until now." "I didn't do anything," Minji protested. "I just walked toward it." "That may be enough," Commander Drawl said. "Report to the xenobiology lab tomorrow morning. All human cadets, we need to run some tests." The xenobiology lab was a massive facility filled with equipment Minji didn't recognize. Tanks held creatures from dozens of worlds. Computers displayed data in languages and formats that made her head spin. Dr. Venn was in charge of the testing. He was an amphibious being from a water world, with smooth blue skin and large eyes that never seemed to blink. "We're going to measure everything about you," Dr. Venn explained to the 5 human cadets. "Chemical signatures, electromagnetic fields, movement patterns, vocal frequencies. We need to understand what these predators are sensing." The test took hours. Minji stood in scanning fields, walked on treadmills while cameras recorded her movements, breathed into analyzers, gave samples of blood and skin cells. Other scientists joined Dr. Venn. They argued in languages the translators struggled to interpret, pointing at data displays and shaking their heads. Finally, after 6 hours, Dr. Venn called all the humans together. "We have found something," he said, "something we did not expect." He brought up a holographic display. It showed the chemical signature of a human compared to several other species. "All creatures give off pheromones," Dr. Venn explained. "Chemical signals. Most are used for communication within a species, but some pheromones trigger responses across species, especially predator and prey relationships." He zoomed in on the human signature. Humans produce a complex mixture of pheromones. This is normal. But there are compounds here that we've seen before. He pulled up another display. "This is the pheromone signature of a Dracon Alpha, the apex predator on Vorath's homeworld." The 2 displays looked remarkably similar in certain areas. "And this," Dr. Venn continued, showing another comparison, is from a hive queen, the dominant predator in Kellis's species history. More similarities. Humans smell like apex predators, Sora said quietly. Not exactly, Dr. Venn corrected. But there are enough similarities that creatures with predatory instincts might be confused. Their prey identification systems are receiving mixed signals. But humans aren't apex predators, Jinho said. We're not the strongest or the fastest. No, Dr. Venn agreed. But according to the data we have on Earth, humans evolved in an environment with multiple apex predators. Big cats, bears, large reptiles in some regions, and humans survived. More than survived. They became the dominant species. He pulled up more data. We believe humans developed certain traits to coexist with and eventually surpass these predators. Tool use, obviously. Intelligence, but also psychological traits. The ability to endure injury. The refusal to show weakness. The willingness to confront threats directly rather than flee. And predators can sense this? Minji asked. In a way, Dr. Venn said. It's not conscious. But millions of years of evolution have taught predators to recognize other apex predators. The signals are subtle. How you move. How you breathe. How you respond to threats. Humans move like hunters, not like prey. That night, the human cadets gathered in Jinho's quarters. They were the only ones there. And they spoke quietly. So we're walking around making apex predators nervous, Sora said. Just by existing. Is that a bad thing? Another human asked. It could be, Jinho said. If the other species think we have an unfair advantage. He was right to be worried. Over the next few days, more incidents occurred. Jinho faced a Garethian pack hunter during an extraction drill. The creature tracked him but wouldn't attack, eventually backing into a corner. Sora encountered a spike lizard during weapons training. The creature, known for its aggressive territorial behavior, fled the moment she entered the room. Every time a human interacted with one of the predator species used in training, the same thing happened. Avoidance, retreat, defensive posturing the alien cadets noticed. Some were fascinated, others were angry. A group led by a militant named Kresh began spreading rumors. Humans were cheating. They had some biological weapon that gave them an unfair advantage. They shouldn't be allowed to graduate. Commander Droll called an assembly. I am aware of the concerns, she said, addressing the entire cadet corps. The xenobiology department has confirmed that humans emit certain chemical signatures that can affect predator behavior. This is not something they control. It is simply how they are, Kresh stood up. It's an unfair advantage. How can we compete against cadets that make the training creatures afraid? The creatures are afraid because they sense something in humans, Commander Droll said. Something that marks them as dangerous. If that is true, then perhaps humans are dangerous. Perhaps they deserve to be here. Or perhaps they should be sent home, Kresh said, before we learn exactly how dangerous they are. Other cadets muttered in agreement. Commander Droll raised one of her 4 arms, calling for silence. There is a way to settle this, she said. A tradition at this academy. Trial by combat. The humans will face opponents of their choosing. If they can prove their worth through skill, not intimidation, then they remain. If they fail, they return to Earth. Minji felt her heart sink. Trial by combat. She had heard about it in her studies. It was an old tradition, rarely used anymore. And it could be deadly. Commander Droll's multiple eyes found Minji in the crowd. Cadet Minji, she said. You were the first to face a predator and make it back away. You will be the first to fight. The assembly hall went silent. Minji stood at the entrance of the Galactic Union Academy and tried not to feel small. The building stretched up into the purple sky, taller than any structure she had ever seen on Earth. Ships from dozens of worlds landed and took off from platforms that floated in the air without any visible support. Aliens of every shape and size walked past her, some on 2 legs, some on 4, some floating, some crawling. She clutched her bag tighter and walked through the main doors. The inside was even more overwhelming. The ceiling was so high she could barely see it. Holographic signs floated in the air, written in languages she couldn't read. Her translator implant buzzed in her ear, converting the alien sounds into words she could understand. Humans report to Bay 7, a mechanical voice announced. Minji followed the glowing path on the floor. She wasn't alone. 4 other humans walked with her, all looking just as nervous as she felt. She recognized one of them from the transport ship. His name was Jinho, and he had spent most of the journey from Earth staring out the window at the stars. Bay 7 was a large room filled with other cadets. Minji's breath caught in her throat. She had seen aliens before on the news feeds, but seeing them in person was different. A massive reptilian creature stood near the far wall, its scales gleaming under the bright lights. It had to be at least 3 meters tall. Next to it, an insect-like being clicked its mandibles together, creating a sound that made Minji's skin crawl. An instructor entered the room. She had 4 arms and gray skin that seemed to shimmer when she moved. 2 additional eyes sat on the sides of her head, giving her a complete view of the room. "I am Commander Draal," she said, her voice deep and commanding. "You are cadets now. You represent 47 species from across the Union. Here you will train together. You will learn together, and some of you will fail together." Her multiple eyes scanned the room and stopped on the humans. "Earth was admitted to the Union 3 years ago," Commander Draal continued. "Your planet is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating we have. Your species has survived conditions that would kill most life in the galaxy." She paused. "That does not mean you will survive here." Minji felt the weight of dozens of alien eyes turning toward her and the other humans. She forced herself to stand straight, to not look away. "You will now be assigned to your training squads," Commander Draal said. "These will be your teammates for the next 6 months. Learn to trust them. Your life may depend on it." A holographic display appeared in the air, showing names and faces. Minji found her name and saw 3 others listed below it. Squad 17. She memorized the faces and moved to the designated area. The first to arrive was the massive reptilian she had seen earlier. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were golden with vertical pupils. When he opened his mouth to speak, she could see rows of sharp teeth. "I am Vorath," he said, his voice rumbling like thunder. "I come from Draken Prime, a high-gravity world. My people are warriors." Minji nodded. "I'm Minji from Earth." Vorath looked down at her. "Earth, the death world. I have heard stories. Constant storms. Predators everywhere. Diseases that kill in days." He tilted his head. "You look fragile." Before Minji could respond, the insect creature approached. It had 6 limbs, 4 touching the ground and 2 held up near its thorax. Its compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns. "Kellys," it said, its voice high and buzzing. "From Hive Cluster 9, I am fast. I am strong. I hope you can keep up, human." The last member of their squad arrived silently. It was a being made of what looked like living crystal. It moved slowly, each step making a soft grinding sound. When it spoke, Minji felt the words more than heard them, vibrations that traveled through the floor and into her bones. Thum. Silicon-based. From Core World Epsilon. Commander Draal's voice echoed through the room. "Your first assessment begins now. Follow your squad leaders to the training grounds." The next few hours were brutal. The physical tests were designed for beings from dozens of different worlds, which meant they were too hard for some species and too easy for others. Minji found herself somewhere in the middle. She couldn't match Vorath's strength. When he lifted the weighted bar, it barely seemed to bother him. When Minji tried, she could barely get it off the ground. She couldn't match Kellis's speed. The insect creature moved like lightning, finishing the obstacle course in half the time it took Minji. Even Thum, despite moving slowly, had advantages. The silicon-based being was nearly indestructible. Things that would break bones just bounced off its crystalline body. By the end of the day, Minji was exhausted. Her muscles ached. She had bruises forming on her arms and legs, but she had completed every test even if she hadn't been the best at any of them. Commander Draal gathered all the squads together. Her 4 arms were crossed and her expression was hard to read. "Some of you performed well," she said. "Some of you did not. But I am particularly concerned about our human cadets." Minji's stomach dropped. "You are weak compared to most species here," Commander Draal continued, looking directly at the 5 humans. "You are slow. You are fragile. Your death world has not made you strong. It has made you survivors perhaps, but survival is not enough at this academy. We need warriors. We need officers who can lead in battle." The other cadets shifted. Some looked at the humans with pity, others with contempt. "I will be watching you closely," Commander Draal said. "If you cannot prove your worth, you will be sent home." That night, Minji lay in her bunk and stared at the ceiling. The room she shared with 3 other cadets was quiet. Somewhere in the distance she could hear the hum of the academies, power systems, and the occasional announcement over the communication network. She thought about Commander Drawls. Words weak, slow, fragile. Maybe she was right. Maybe humans didn't belong here. But then Minji thought about Earth. She thought about her training back home, running through forests where predators lurked in the shadows. She thought about the storms that could kill you if you weren't careful, the diseases you couldn't see, the heat that could cook you, and the cold that could freeze you. Earth was a death world, but humans had survived it. They had thrived on it. She had to believe that meant something. The alarm that woke her 3 hours later was not the normal morning call. It was high-pitched and urgent, echoing through the corridors. "Lockdown protocol initiated," a mechanical voice announced. "All cadets remain in your quarters. This is not a drill." Minji sat up in her bunk. The other cadets in her room were already awake, moving to the door. "What's happening?" someone asked. "Containment breach," another voice answered from the hallway. "Something got loose in the xenobiology wing." Minji's door slid open. Foreth stood there, his golden eyes wide. "Our squad," he said, his voice urgent. "We need to get to training room 9 now. But the lockdown, now." Vorath roared. Minji grabbed her jacket and ran. 6 months passed. Minji and the other human cadets completed their training and became full members of the academy. The trial had changed things. The other species no longer looked at humans with contempt or pity. Now they looked at them with caution, with wariness, some with fear. Minji graduated with honors. Her scores in combat were average. Her physical tests were unremarkable. But her evaluation said something that made her proud. Demonstrates exceptional determination and mental fortitude. Recommended for advanced training. She was assigned to an expedition team along with several other graduates. Their mission was to survey a newly discovered world called Korath Prime. It was classified as a Class 8 death world. Dangerous but not as extreme as Earth. The team leader was Commander Drawl herself. "This will be your first real mission," Commander Drawl told the team during the briefing. "Korath Prime has a breathable atmosphere and abundant life. A survey team was sent 3 weeks ago to establish a base camp. They have stopped responding to communications. We are going to find them." The team consisted of 8 members. Minji and Jinho represented the humans. Vorath was there, now a friend rather than just a squad mate. Kellis, Thum, and 3 others from different species rounded out the group. They traveled to Korath Prime on a fast ship. The journey took 4 days. When they arrived, Minji understood why it was called a death world. The planet was beautiful and terrifying. Massive forests covered most of the land. The trees were taller than Earth's redwoods, with leaves that shimmered in colors Minji had no names for. The sky was a deep purple, and 2 moons hung visible even during the day. But there was something else. Something in the air, a tension that made the alien members of the team nervous. "Gravity is higher than standard," Vorath noted. "Not as high as my homeworld, but significant." "Atmospheric pressure is within acceptable ranges," another team member reported. "Temperature is warm but manageable." They landed near where the survey team's camp should have been. The ship's sensors had detected the structures but no life signs. Commander Drawl divided them into pairs. "Stay in contact. Report anything unusual. We find the survey team and determine what happened." Minji was paired with Vorath. They moved through the forest together, following the path the survey team would have taken. The forest was alive with sound. Creatures called from the canopy. Things moved through the undergrowth. Minji's training on Earth made her comfortable in this environment, but Vorath was tense. "This place feels wrong," he said. "Wrong how? I don't know. My instincts are warning me. There are predators here. Big ones. They found the survey camp an hour later. It was destroyed. Equipment was scattered and broken. Supply crates were torn open, but there were no bodies. No blood. They survived whatever attacked," Minji said, examining the damage. "Look, they retreated in an organized way, grabbed essentials and moved." Vorath found tracks leading away from the camp. They went that way, toward the cave system the initial scans detected. They reported back to Commander Drawl. The team regrouped and followed the tracks. The caves were massive openings in a cliff face. The tracks led inside, and so did equipment from the survey team. They had definitely come here. As they entered the caves, Minji noticed something. "Scratches on the walls, recent, made by claws, predator marks," she said. "Multiple species by the look of it." That doesn't make sense, Kelly said. Predators don't cooperate. They compete, but the evidence was clear. Several different types of claw marks, all relatively fresh, all leading into the cave system. They found the survey team deep in the caves, barricaded behind makeshift walls made from their equipment. 7 researchers, alive but terrified. They had been trapped for 3 weeks. Thank the ancestors, the lead researcher said when he saw Commander Drawl. We thought no one was coming. What happened? Commander Drawl asked. The predators, the researcher said. They started gathering outside our camp on the first day. Different species, ones that should have been hunting each other. But they weren't fighting. They were just watching us. Then they attacked. We had to retreat here. Where are they now? Outside. They haven't left. They keep us trapped. It's like they're scared of what's in here with us. Minji looked around the cave. What's in here with you? Nothing, the researcher said. Just us. We explored when we first arrived. We found something, but it's just old ruins, ancient, nothing dangerous. Show us, Commander Drawl ordered. The ruins were deeper in the cave system. Stone structures weathered by time but still recognizable as buildings. The architecture was alien, nothing like any species in the Union. And everywhere, carved into the walls, the same message repeated over and over. Jinho had studied ancient languages. He stood before one of the walls, his translator working to decode the symbols. It's a warning, he said slowly. It says, beware the persistent ones, y'all persistent ones. Commander Drawl asked. Jinho moved to another wall. More symbols. This civilization lived here. They were advanced. But something came. Something that hunted them. Not because it was stronger or faster, but because it never stopped. It could track them across continents. It could survive injuries that should have been fatal. It healed and came back. Again and again. Always hunting. He turned to face the group, his expression troubled. They built this place to hide, to study their enemy, to try to understand how to fight something that couldn't be fought conventionally. But they failed. The civilization fell. The persistent ones killed them all. What were these persistent ones? Vorath asked. Jinho read more of the walls. The descriptions, they match no species in the Union database. But they match something else, he looked at Minji. They match humans, bipedal tool users, social hunters, endurance predators. The ability to track prey for days, weeks even, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Silence filled the chamber. That's impossible, one of the team members said. Humans are from Earth. This civilization existed 40,000 years ago. The ruins are 40,000 years old, Jinho corrected. But the civilization might have been older, and space travel has been possible for millions of years in the galaxy. Something like humans could have evolved elsewhere, could have spread to other worlds. Dr. Ven's research came back to Minji. Humans smelled like apex predators because they were apex predators, not through strength but through persistence, through the refusal to give up. The predators outside, Minji said slowly, they're not keeping you trapped. They're keeping themselves safe. From us, from humans, the researcher asked. From anything that reminds them of the persistent ones, the ruins still carry some trace of them, some marker that predators can sense. And we carry it too. That's why they gathered when you arrived. They recognized the threat. Commander Drawl was silent for a long moment, processing this information. We need to leave, she said finally. This planet is not safe for colonization. They gathered the survey team and prepared to return to the ship. But first they had to get past the predators outside. Minji stood at the cave entrance and looked out. She could see them in the forest. At least 6 different species, all apex predators from this world. They should have been fighting each other. Instead, they watched the cave with wary eyes. Let me go first, Minji said. That's suicide, Vorath protested. No, Minji said. They're already afraid. Let me show them their right to be. She walked out of the cave alone. The predators saw her immediately. They were massive creatures, some with scales, others with fur, all with teeth and claws designed for killing. But none of them moved. Minji walked forward calmly, confidently. She didn't run. She didn't show fear. She moved like she belonged here, like this was her forest, like she was the apex predator. The creatures backed away, one by one. They retreated into the forest, disappearing into the shadows. By the time the rest of the team emerged from the cave, the predators were gone. The journey back to the ship was uneventful. The predators stayed away, sensing something in the team that warned them off. On the ship, returning to the academy, Commander Drawl called Minji to her quarters. "What you did on that planet was extraordinary," the commander said. "You walked toward creatures that could have killed you in seconds, and they fled." "They sensed what I was," Minji said. "What all humans are. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest or the most deadly, but we're persistent. We don't give up, and evolution on thousands of worlds has taught predators to recognize that trait and fear it." Commander Drawl nodded slowly. "I have been thinking about this, about what it means. Humans survived Earth not because it made you weak, but because it forced you to become something else, something unique. What's that? Predators that hunt with their minds, with tools, with cooperation, but most importantly with patience and determination. You can wait, you can endure, you can take punishment that would break other species and keep coming back. That is more terrifying than any fang or claw." Minji looked out the window at the stars passing by. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted. "Growing up on Earth, we always felt weak compared to the other animals. Lions, bears, crocodiles, they all seemed so much more dangerous. But they're not," Commander Drawl said, "because all of them can be scared away. All of them will retreat when injured. All of them know when." Minji didn't sleep that night. She lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, thinking about the trial. 3 days. She had 3 days to prepare for a fight that could end her career at the academy, or end her life. The trial by combat had rules, but they were simple. 2 cadets entered the arena. They fought until one surrendered or could no longer continue. Lethal force was discouraged, but accidents happened. The medical teams were always standing by. The question that kept Minji awake was simple. Who should she choose? If she chose someone weak, it would prove nothing. Everyone would say she won because she picked an easy opponent. But if she chose someone too strong, someone who could crush her in seconds, then she would fail and all humans would be sent home. At dawn, she made her decision. She found Vorath in the training hall, lifting weights that would have broken a human's spine. He noticed her and set the bar down carefully. "Minji," he said, "you look tired." "I am," she admitted. "I need to ask you something." Vorath waited. "Will you be my opponent in the trial?" The massive reptilian was quiet for a long moment. His golden eyes studied her face. "Why me?" he asked finally. "Because you're strong. Because if I can prove myself against you, no one can say I took the easy path. And because," she hesitated, "because I trust you not to kill me." Vorath's scales shifted, darkening slightly. In his species, it was a sign of deep emotion. "You saved my life when the Voidstalker attacked," he said. "I owe you a debt. And now you ask me to fight you?" "I'm not asking you to let me win," Minji said quickly. "I'm asking you to fight me for real, to show everyone that humans can compete, even against warriors like you." Vorath looked down at his clawed hands, each one large enough to wrap around Minji's entire head. "You cannot win," he said softly. "I am 3 times your size. My strength is 10 times yours. My hide is armored. Your bones will break before mine." "Maybe," Minji said, "but I have to try." Vorath was silent for another moment, then nodded slowly. "I accept. But know this, Minji of Earth, I will not hold back. If you want this to mean something, I must fight at my full strength." "I understand. I hope you do," Vorath said, "because I do not want to hurt you, but I will if we do this." The next 3 days passed in a blur. Minji trained every spare moment. She studied Vorath's fighting style, watching recordings of his combat drills. She learned that he was strong but not as fast as smaller species. He relied on his reach and his power to overwhelm opponents. She couldn't match his strength, so she would have to be smarter. The other human cadets found her on the second day. Jinho, Sora, and the others gathered around her during a meal break. "We heard you chose Vorath," Sora said. "Are you crazy?" "Probably," Minji admitted. "You're going to get killed," Jinho said bluntly. "He's too strong. Choose someone else. There's still time." But Minji shook her head. "If I choose someone weaker, it proves nothing. This has to matter, even if it means you lose." "Even then," Minji said, "at least everyone will know we tried." On the morning of the trial, Minji woke early. Her body ached from 3 days of intense training. She had bruises on her arms and legs from practicing falls and rolls. But she felt ready, as ready as she could be. Commander Dral met her outside the arena. "You can still withdraw," the instructor said. "There is no shame in recognizing an impossible fight." "I'm not withdrawing," Minji said. Commander Dral's multiple eyes studied her. "Why Vorath? Of all the cadets you could have chosen, why one of the strongest?" "Because if I'm going to fail, I want everyone to know I gave it everything," Minji said. "And if I succeed even a little, it means something." "You are either very brave or very foolish," Commander Dral said. "Possibly both." The arena was enormous, circular, with walls that stretched up 30 meters. Seating surrounded the fighting floor, and every seat was filled. Cadets from every species had come to watch. News feeds from across the Union were broadcasting the event. Humans on Earth were watching. This was more than a fight between two cadets. It was a statement about humanity's place in the galaxy. Minji walked to the center of the arena floor. The surface was smooth and gray, made of some material that would provide good traction. Medical teams waited at stations along the walls, ready to intervene if things went badly. Vorath entered from the opposite side. He wore his combat training gear, which was minimal. His species didn't need much armor. Their scales were protection enough. They met in the center. Vorath looked down at Minji, and she saw something in his eyes. Respect and sadness. "Last chance to stop this," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "No," Minji said. "Let's show them what we can do." Commander Dral's voice echoed through the arena. "This is a trial by combat. The fight continues until surrender or incapacitation. Lethal force is forbidden. Medical teams will intervene if necessary. Combatants, take your positions." Minji and Vorath backed away from each other, creating distance. "Begin!" Commander Dral commanded. Vorath didn't rush. He moved forward carefully, his clawed hands ready. He was taking her seriously, treating her like a real opponent. Minji circled, keeping her distance. She needed to understand his patterns before she committed to any attack. Vorath lunged, his clawed hand sweeping toward her. She rolled under it, came up on his left side, and struck at his ribs. Her fist connected, but it was like hitting a wall. His scales didn't even dent. His backhand caught her across the shoulder and sent her sprawling. Pain exploded through her body. She rolled with the momentum and got back to her feet, but her left arm was numb. The crowd was silent, watching. Vorath pressed his advantage. He was faster than she expected for his size. His claws came again and again, forcing her to dodge, to roll, to retreat. One strike caught her leg. She went down hard, tasting blood. Her vision blurred for a moment. "Surrender," Vorath said. "Please." Minji pushed herself up. Her leg screamed in pain, but it supported her weight. Nothing broken. "Not yet." "No," she gasped. She attacked again, and this time she aimed for his eyes. It was a desperate move, but it made him flinch, made him bring his hands up to protect his face. In that moment, she swept his leg. It shouldn't have worked. He was too big, too heavy. But she caught him off balance, and he went down on one knee. She tried to follow up, but he recovered too fast. His hand caught her around the waist and threw her across the arena. She hit the floor hard enough to crack ribs. The pain was incredible. She couldn't breathe. The medical team started moving toward her, but she got up. The crowd made a sound. Not cheering. Something else. Shock, maybe. Or disbelief. She was bleeding now. Her ribs were definitely broken. Her leg could barely support her weight, but she faced Vorath and raised her hands. "Minji," Vorath said, and his voice was pleading. "Stop, you've proven yourself. No one will say you didn't try." "Not done," she wheezed. She couldn't win. She knew that now if she hadn't known it before. Vorath was too strong, too tough, too skilled. Every exchange left her more injured while he barely seemed winded. But she kept getting up. Every time he knocked her down, she got back up. The crowd had gone completely silent now. Even the broadcasts had stopped their commentary. Everyone was watching this human cadet, broken and bleeding, refusing to stay down. Vorath hit her again, and she went down again. This time it took longer to get up. Her vision was going dark at the edges. She might have a concussion. The medical teams were arguing with Commander Dral, saying they needed to stop the fight. She got to her feet one more time, and Vorath saw something in that moment that made him freeze. She wasn't going to stop. She couldn't win, but she wasn't going to surrender. There was only one way this fight would end, and that was if he hurt her so badly she physically could not continue, and he didn't want to do that. In his culture, warriors fought with honor, but there was no honor in destroying someone who refused to give up. There was no victory in breaking someone who was already beaten but wouldn't acknowledge it. Vorath lowered his hands. "I yield," he said. The arena exploded in sound. Shouts, arguments, confusion. Half the crowd was on their feet. Commander Draal moved to the center of the floor quickly. "Explain yourself, Cadet Vorath." Vorath looked at Minji, who was swaying on her feet, barely conscious. "She cannot beat me," Vorath said. "This is clear. But she will not surrender. I would have to permanently injure her to end this fight. That is not honor. That is not what warriors do." He turned to face Commander Draal. "The human has proven her courage, her determination. What more do you want?" "The trial requires one combatant to yield or be unable to continue," Commander Draal said. "Then I yield," Vorath repeated firmly. "I will not hurt her further." The medical teams reached Minji. She tried to wave them away, but her legs gave out. They caught her before she hit the ground. As they carried her toward the medical station, she looked up at Vorath. The massive warrior was watching her, and in his golden eyes she saw something she hadn't expected. Not pity. Not even respect. Fear. He was afraid of what she represented. Not because she was strong, but because she was something worse. Something that couldn't be stopped by strength or skill or pain. She was stubborn beyond reason, determined beyond sense. She was human. The medical bay was filled with equipment that put her back together. Broken ribs healed. Concussion treated. Bleeding stopped. By the next morning, she was sore but mostly functional. Commander Draal visited her there.